Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to the Garden Report. Playoff scenarios on the table, Josue.
Yeah, man.
Select into number 2.
It's that time of the year.
The Heat clinched number 7 with a win over the 76ers, and they will host the play-in game on Tuesday. One of two possibilities for round 1, the Hawks or the Heat. I think everyone looks at the Heat and says they're going to win that matchup. I think they've won 3 out of 4 against Atlanta this year.
Yeah.
Including a recent matchup. Hawks are here on Sunday. We'll talk about them in our next video. But the Heat, Celtics know them. 7-game series in the East Finals last year. This team's different. I said game number 3 of the year I was down there. Weird vibes.
Yeah.
Eric Spoelstra talking about Kyle Lowry, kind of bouncing around the subject. Pat Riley had weird comments over the summer about shape of their players, of course alluding to Lowry, and he ends up missing big chunks of this year with injury. He's coming off the bench for them now. Jimmy Butler's heating up, bunch of 20-point games in a row as they've knocked off a bunch of wins. Not tonight against Washington, though. And they'll be a favorite at home. So more likely than not, I think we're looking at Heat-Celtics round 1. Not everybody's favorite matchup in terms of ease, but it will be a challenge that this Celtics team might need.
CLNS Media's Celtics coverage is brought to you by FanDuel. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and make every moment more on America's #1 sportsbook.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I'm looking at it. You know, bring on the Heat. Yeah, I mean, out of the two, the Hawks are ideal in the sense that they're the weaker team. But if this team's going to go to the championship, they're going to go back to the finals. Let's see them put the Heat out for good. And what I mean by that is they're probably going to take a step into a rebuild or some sort of, rebuild on the fly this upcoming summer because it's about that time, right, Bobby? I mean, they're trying to add pieces, older guys that are latched on and just trying to get the most that they can out of guys instead of making major moves or major splashes like teams like the Celtics did and bringing in someone like Malcolm Brogdon or the way the Bucks handled their offseason. Miami didn't necessarily do that. They were very disciplined in the sense of we got this, we can handle this. We were that close, to being the Celtics, but in doing that, teams like the Celtics and the Bucks, they zoom right past them, in a sense of like how good and how talented these teams are. So, with all that being said, I just think it's one of those situations where if the Celtics can't beat the Heat in the best-of-7 series, then can they win the championship? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you can pick the easy road and go into Atlanta, but why not go and knock out the Heat? I mean, obviously, they don't have a choice here, but what I mean by that is I'm not looking at it either, concern for the Celtics. I mean, sure, can a team like the Heat force a Game 7? Yeah, and that wouldn't be ideal because I think the Celtics are a much better team. I think they could wrap up a series against them in 6, maybe even 5, and that would give us a great sense of where they are mentally if they're able to pull that off. But if not, if it goes 7, you don't want to see that happen, but if it happens, I still like the Celtics' chances.
You worry about their big 3. Bam.
Oh, you're worried. Wow, Bob, you're kind of worried.
No, I think anybody should be respectful of those 3 guys. Bam, Jimmy Butler for obvious
for sure,
reasons.
yeah.
And Tyler Hero, who was injured for most of that series last year, went out there for Game 7, but he wasn't really out there. Those are 3 20-point per game guys, but that only gets you to 60. And this Celtics team scoring 120 many nights, 130 some nights. That probably ramps back a little bit in the playoffs, but the shooting differential between these two teams is massive. The depth difference with what we saw here tonight from the Celtics' depth, the Heat notoriously great at getting big performances out of their Gabe Vincents and Max Struses and those guys. They haven't gotten them this year. Now they're relying on front court help from Kevin Love. They're playing big. Celtics have gone in a small direction. So this is different from last year. Everyone's going to be thinking about last year. Right. And the Heat did grind them out, and they still can do all the Butler Bam things that they do, especially against the Celtics starting lineup. They can zone it up. They can coach. So I think there's legitimate concerns. But what people got to realize is this is not the same Heat team. They're 26th in offense. They're really bad on that end.
They're just not the same team, right? Because I just think that they just had this, expectation that guys like Gabe Vincent or, Max Strus or even Tyler Hero. I mean, Caleb, like these guys were going to make tremendous strides, and this hasn't been the case this season.
They miss PJ Tucker. I'm surprised, but they do.
I mean, why not? I'm not surprised because I get what you're saying. I mean, he's a guy that was shooting, close to 50% from beyond the arc, and he was a guy that was a constant thorn in the Celtics' side, whether it was on the defense and rebounding.
Philly the other night.
Yeah, man. I mean, they did 3 threes in a row. But yeah, I mean, with Tyler Hero, that's a good point. I mean, someone that can put the ball on the floor, can score, he can have one of those games where he scores 25, 30. Does that win you a game throughout the series? Maybe, possibly. Jimmy Butler is scary as well. But I just think the Celtics are much more talented. They're more disciplined. Guys like Malcolm Brogdon, change the complexity of that series. someone that they didn't have last season. Derek White isn't the same player we saw last year. He's a lot better. He's a lot more comfortable in the role that he's in. So, yeah, I mean, look, again, it wouldn't shock me if a team like the Heat forced a Game 7, but I still like the Celtics' chances, and I still think that they could learn a whole lot from that. And, you bring up those two guys, Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero, which is worth bringing up, but I want to bring up another guy who's not even a player, and that's their head coach, Eric Spoelstra. I mean, that's something, that matchup for I was going to say Ime Udoka, Joe Mazzulla. I mean, well, the reason why
struggled in that series.
I was going to say he's on my brain because I think he learned a lot about himself as a coach throughout that series. So maybe Joe Mazzulla goes through the same kind of lesson, but it's going to be less rigorous than what we saw last year, considering that this is a much better Celtics team going up against an inferior Miami Heat team.
These two teams split the season series. Jimmy special here got the Heat a win, and then Celtics went down there undermanned and almost pulled off a late comeback. Led all game. Heat turned on the Jets in the second half. A massive run led them to a win down there, and then Celtics offense prevailed in their 2 victories. So more even than you would expect a 2-7 series to be during the regular season. I think that probably concerns some people.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler reaching his stride. If he's healthy, he's dangerous, especially in the playoffs.
Right. Plus, it's personal for these guys. I feel like Miami Heat is just like, man, those damn Celtics, we got to beat them. Like they can't get over what happened last year. Yeah.
Yeah, and you worry about the zone. You always do. Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White,
zone.
though.
Yeah.
They ravaged this Raptors zone during this mini-series in that first game, and they are big difference. Jason Tatum said it tonight. Brogdon, huge difference versus last year. You look back at that series last year, they're playing Pritchard, White struggling. He did find himself on the roll, but much different White this year too. I think you might look at this series similar to the Nets from 21 to 22. Celtics going from 22 to 23 against the Heat. I could see a completely different series, and I still got to stack everything up, but I'm with you. 5, maybe 6 games, I could see the Celtics taking it in.
Yeah, I mean, again, it wouldn't shock me if the Heat force a Game 7. It would be one of those things where it's just like, man, you guys could have got this done sooner, but you see this Celtics team going into that Game 7.
That's the biggest worry, is that it goes longer than it needs to.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to think about that. Jimmy going off for 45, 50. I mean, it wouldn't. That's he's about that life, right? Especially when it matters the most. And his final 3-pointer of that series last year would have definitely changed things, and probably Celtics only reached the NBA Finals. But again, I just think the Celtics have just made tremendous strides this season, and the Heat just haven't been that team.
We'll dive deeper if it becomes official. For now, Heat Hawks Tuesday night. Check that out. Probably on TNT, and the Celtics will await the winner and begin preparing for it first. Their regular season finale against the Hawks will have coverage here at TD Garden.
On Easter.
Probably a super short-handed effort that day for Boston as they rest guys and call it a season. Jaylen Brown injured as well. He'll miss that game. We'll talk about his injury in depth in our next video and preview the Hawks, who I don't foresee being their first-round opponent, but we should still cover them anyway, and we will here at TD Garden.
I know, we didn't talk about them at all in this video.
Bobby Manning, Garden Report. Check out our other videos here on Celtics All Access and CLNS Media.